Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest. Now, we've made two videos on the Anthony Davis trade already, and we've broken down the Toronto Raptors are right in the middle of things right now. Could possibly make a move where we have the assets, we have the positioning, we're in a win now mode. Could certainly see the Toronto Raptors making a push for Davis, and reports are coming out currently that the New Orleans Pelicans are not interested in making a deal with the Lakers currently as of today. It came out about an hour ago, so obviously things will change. The deadline's about a week away right now, but everyone's talking about Anthony Davis and how he could be such a good fit and amongst Raptors fans, how he could fit in with this team. And obviously, we'd have to give up a lot, and it would be unfortunate to lose some of the players. But for a player the caliber of Anthony Davis, you have to do that move. But when a superstar is being traded, there's always a ripple effect amongst the rest of the team, the rest of the league, and the Toronto Raptors. If we don't get Anthony Davis, if we're not fortunate enough to really make the move for the main star player, there are a lot of players on the New Orleans Pelicans that are being almost auctioned off by the team currently. So there's a lot of players we can look at, and I want to break some of these guys down because in the comment section we've seen a lot of people bring up Jrue Holiday's name, Nikola Mirotic. So we'll get into all those players, and the first guy we got to talk about is Jrue Holiday. Now, there were legitimate reports. I believe Zach Lowe, who's a very credible NBA reporter, he came out and said that the Pelicans this weekend, prior to all this madness occurring, saying that the Pelicans were looking to trade Julius Randle, Nikola Mirotic, and Etuan Moore. These guys were all on the block, so if a move were to happen with these side players, not the centerpiece Anthony Davis, the guy that everyone's talking about, those are the guys that will more likely be moved. But Jrue Holiday is the most fun player on this roster outside of Anthony Davis. And this season, he's been playing out of his mind. He's playing at a guy that really looks like an all-star out there. It's tough in the Western Conference, but 21 points, 8 assists, and 5 rebounds per game for Jrue Holiday this season. He's only 28 years old, and he has a big contract, but he's a guy that would be a tremendous asset to have, as the Toronto Raptors are obviously going all in on this season, looking to win a championship this year. It's tough with the Golden State Warriors out west, but the more talent you can have on this roster, the better it will be. We're loaded in the backcourt with Danny Green and Kyle Lowry, but bring in a guy that's as talented as Jrue Holiday. He's a guy that would fit. He's a guy that plays ridiculous lockdown defense. He can create. He plays on the ball. He plays off the ball. So depending on who we gave up, it's a big contract that we'd have to match. He would fit in great with this team. He has the personality of a guy he has that Toronto Raptor personality, if that makes sense. Not too high key, more of a laid back star in this league, and he would just be an awesome player to have. Now, a lot of people have been bagging on Kyle Lowry as of late, and he's struggled, but he's been dealing with this chronic back issue now for the past month or so. And when we saw Kyle Lowry at the beginning of the season, when Kyle Lowry was in full form, fully healthy, maybe outside of Kyrie, he was playing like the best guard in the Eastern Conference. He was leading the league in assists, he was taking charges, he was scoring at a high clip, and he was really facilitating this Toronto Raptors offense that got the best out of Kawhi Leonard, Pascal Siakam, all of these players. Serge Ibaka's turnaround is in large part due to Kyle Lowry's ability to feed him in his spots. So Kyle Lowry's a guy that hasn't fallen off a cliff. He's dealing with injuries right now, and you can make the argument that he might not recover properly from them, as obviously chronic issues are big problems, but he's looked better as of late. He's gradually improving. He's gradually getting out of the slump. So by no means I think we should just dump Kyle Lowry. A lot of people are making that argument. But if we were to make a trade for Jrue Holiday, now, I think Kyle Lowry and Jrue Holiday could be a perfect duo in the backcourt because Jrue Holiday has played mostly off the ball this season, and this is where he's had, arguably his best season in his career. I know he had that one All-Star season with Philadelphia when he was, I believe, like 23, but regardless, Jrue Holiday can play off the ball, and I think him and Kyle Lowry would complement each other phenomenally. They'd both be creators. We see in the same vein that Fred VanVleet comes on the court and plays with Kyle Lowry, and they have the two playmakers, two guys that can facilitate an offense and shoot the ball, shoot threes, and Jrue Holiday's a much better defender than all of our guards. Maybe outside of Danny Green, who's more of our wing player, but out of DeLon Wright, Fred VanVleet, Kyle Lowry, and honestly, as ridiculously good as Norm and Danny Green are at the shooting guard position and defending, Jrue Holiday might be the most hounding on-ball defender in the league. Obviously, Kawhi Leonard is probably the most scary guy to have switched on you, and obviously Kawhi is much bigger, physically more gifted than Jrue Holiday, but pound for pound, Jrue Holiday just absolutely gets into these offensive players. We saw a couple games ago against James Harden. He completely flustered James. I know James Harden's been on a historically good offensive run as of late, and the fact that Jrue Holiday could slow him down, it's a phenomenal feature. Having him as a defensive wing could be a phenomenal asset for the Toronto Raptors. Now, as to who we'd have to give up, that'd be interesting, because if the Pelicans are looking to go down this tanking road, we'd have to give up a young asset, and it'd be interesting to see, because we would have to match salary, and Jrue Holiday's on a massive contract, and the Pelicans are looking for young players, and obviously young players are not on big contracts. So I believe to get a deal for Jrue Holiday done, you might have to give up a young, talented piece, because that's the direction it looks like the Pelicans are going towards, with the Anthony Davis wanting out and all these sorts of things, and we'd have to match salary. Now, I wouldn't want to give up nearly as much as the trade proposals that we've made for Anthony Davis in previous videos, but it'd be an interesting take to see. Would you guys be interested in trading OG Anunoby and big contracts? We probably have to be like a guy like Jonas, maybe even Serge, for Jrue Holiday. I know we're pretty loaded in the backcourt. Maybe Norman Powell could be a piece in there. What sort of trades would you guys like to see for Jrue Holiday? Let me know in the comment section below, because he'd be an awesome piece to have. I don't really see him being necessary, as Danny Green and Kyle Lowry are phenomenal starting backcourt, and are championship caliber starting backcourt, in my opinion, especially if we have guys like Kawhi Leonard and Pascal Siakam in the front. But, would you want to see Jrue Holiday? Because I think it's fair to say he'd be an upgrade over Danny Green running the 2 position, and Danny Green off the bench would certainly bolster the 3-point shooting off the bench. So he'd be a guy I'd love to pick up if Masai could somehow fleece the Pelicans. He said that the 90% of the reason why he stayed in New Orleans was because of Anthony Davis. So maybe he'll want out as well. That'll be an interesting development to look at. But now to the guys that probably will more likely be traded, at least at this trade deadline. It's not necessarily going to happen, but the guys that the Pelicans have been shopping prior to these Anthony Davis news, and Nikola Mirotic is a guy that I think would fit in really well with the Toronto Raptors as well. The Toronto Raptors, obviously our biggest issue this season has been the consistency from the 3-point line, and Nikola Mirotic is a guy that can really knock down 3-point shots. He's averaging 17 and 8. He's shooting about 38% from the 3-point line as of now. And with the struggles of OG Anunoby and CJ Miles, we're kind of looking for that backup big man. Obviously, OG and CJ are both traditional small forwards. That's where they're best suited. But with Norman Powell, DeLon Wright, and Fred VanVleet, those are kind of the 3 guard positions, the 1, 2, and 3 off the bench. So you see a lot of CJ and OG at the power forward position, and those guys are a bit undersized. They've been struggling all year. So a player like Nikola Mirotic that could come in and fill that role. The guy is averaging 18 points per game right now. He's playing at a high level. And, the Toronto Raptors, if you look at our team 2 years ago, and you think back to before Patrick Patterson got too many Cineplex points and was watching movies in his head on the court out there, Patty P was an integral piece to that Lowry plus bench unit, and it was because he could stretch the floor off the bench. He could create that spacing as a big player that could get rebounds and be capable as a power forward, but he'd stretch the floor and be effective. And Nikola Mirotic would be Patrick Patterson on absolute steroids, because he's a much better player. Patty P was extremely inconsistent. Now, you could argue Patty P was a bit of a better defender, but nonetheless, if Nikola Mirotic averaging 18 points per game, he'll more than make up for that on the offensive end in his 3-point consistency. And to have him off the bench, give Fred VanVleet some spacing, because he's loving to attack the rim, and because there's a lot of players, OG Anunoby's been super inconsistent from the 3-point line, so people have just been almost leaving him open. Greg Monroe can't really hit a shot outside the paint, so he's always in there cluttering things up. DeLon Wright's not considered a consistent 3-point shooter yet. Norman Powell's only really been good the past month. When Fred VanVleet was really effective last season, when he could drive in and dish things out and create things for other players, and DeLon Wright could be in the same fashion. So having a player on the bench that is a legitimate 3-point threat that will be consistent, it would benefit the offense to such a great extent. It would open up those driving lanes, as I mentioned, for Fred and DeLon. Norman Powell could get to the rim easier, and he's been doing a great job at slashing, even with this cluttered bench mob offense. And Nikola Mirotic could also slide his way into the starting unit. Because one thing that I've been talking about is bring back that chemistry with the bench mob. Let Pascal Siakam get the best out of players like Fred VanVleet, DeLon, CJ. Because when that core rotation was playing last season, they were the best bench in the NBA. So maybe because they have that chemistry, they have that 905 chemistry, they have those Rico Hines scrimmages under their belts, along with all of last season playing as the mob. Let Pascal Siakam get some run with the bench. Obviously, you start Pascal because he's having an all-star caliber season. That you can't debate that. But you could sub Pascal Siakam out a bit quicker, run Nikola Mirotic in there, get the spacing for the starters, which would be an even more valuable piece because then Kawhi and Lowry and Danny Green, it adds another dimension to that offense. And, Pascal Siakam could get more run with the bench. So I think if we could get Nikola Mirotic, that'd be a player that I'd be super high on. And I think we could get him for a lot cheaper than Jrue Holiday. Jrue Holiday's a player that is widely considered an all-star, so I feel like we'd have to give up more assets for him. But with Nikola Mirotic's questionable defense and, this really being his only real breakout season, he's pretty good last year. I think the Toronto Raptors might only have to give up one or two assets, and not players of the caliber of Pascal Siakam. It might be a player like Norm, DeLon, CJ. These are the level guys that I think we could probably get for Nikola Mirotic. But let me know what you guys think. What type of trades that you'd want to see the Raptors make for Mirotic? I'd love to have him on the roster. It'd be a tough one to trade Norm, especially the way he's been playing, and I think he's only going to get better now that he's consistently found a spot in the rotation and he can finally get that experience under his belt. Because I've been saying it, I was saying it, and people were flaming me when Norm was playing bad, that Norm just needed consistent run. And he got a bit of that, but there's always this expectation that someone was going to sub in for him. There wasn't that comfort for Norman Powell in the rotation, even when he was a starter for like 9 games. Casey loved to sub in CJ very quickly for Norm and not give him those starter minutes, and he got hurt, and you could see the lack of trust, the lack of faith in Norman, as soon as he came back, OG Anunoby was starting at the 3, which I think was a smart move. OG was playing out of his mind last season, but it still illustrates how Norm never really had a guaranteed niche with this team. And I think he's found that right now, and he's taking advantage of it. He's gotten a consistent run for about a month now. He continues to get better and better and better. He's not forcing anything. He's not trying to prove himself that much. He's just playing within the offense, doing what he can do best, slash the ball, hit open threes when he's in a groove, and play phenomenal defense. And I think Norm's only going to get better. But that might be a hot take, so it'd be tough to see us trade Norman Powell. But let me know who you think Norm is worth. Do you think that we should? Nikola Mirotic, Julius Randle, Jrue Holiday, these types of players are worth Norm. Obviously, I think Jrue Holiday is unquestionable. You need added pieces in there, but let me know in the comment section. Obviously, there's been no rumors about these second-tier guys coming to Toronto, but when people are on the market, you never know what could happen. It's fun dialogue to have going. And the final 2 players, Julius Randle, he's a very talented player, don't get me wrong. I think he'd be an asset, in the same vein that we need a backup power forward currently, because currently it's looking like OG, CJ, and Chris Boucher are all fighting for that position, and 3 of those options this season at least aren't looking too bright. I think OG's the player that will turn it around, especially if no moves happen, but this is the year the Toronto Raptors are going all out, so it's tough to take that risk and in hopes that OG will turn it around. By no means do I think we should give up on the player, even if he struggles this season for throughout. But OG, it's not a sure thing OG's going to come back, despite my hopes and beliefs. So having a guy like Julius Randle could also be a spark plug off the bench in that power forward, that backup forward position. And Etuan Moore. The Toronto Raptors are looking for ball handlers. He's not the greatest creator in the league, but Etuan Moore certainly can shoot the ball. He's averaging around 12 points per game with over a 40% three-point shot. He can stroke it. Bringing in players that are capable like that at shooting the 3-ball would fit in perfectly with this Toronto Raptors team. And we saw in the Pelicans Raptors game this season, he's capable of going off inside the paint as well. I remember that game he had about 800 floaters against us. It was kind of ridiculous, but yeah, Etuan Moore is a player that I wouldn't mind having as well. There's a lot of intriguing pieces on this Pelicans team. It's kind of surprising how poorly they're doing in the Western Conference, but let me know who intrigues you most on the New Orleans Pelicans outside of Anthony Davis, because if they make this Anthony Davis move, whether it's to us or to other teams, they're going to be on a fire sale. I don't see them really keeping this current roster that they have built around Davis together. Whether they tank or not, I really see big changes coming with New Orleans. So what players are you interested? There's a few other guys, Ian Clark, Darius Miller. We kind of brought up those two players in the other podcast, but, crazy things are happening in the NBA. You guys are the best for listening this far. We're going to keep dropping content. The trade deadline's coming up next week, so there's lots to talk about as a Toronto Raptors fan. There's lots of things to speculate. It's always good to break down the rumors that are coming out before the trade deadline. But regardless, you're the best for making it this far. Check out the Twitter, the Instagram, all that cool stuff. Send us over Twitter in the comment section on Instagram. Your guys' favorite trade. Maybe whip up the trade machine and send it over to us, because we have a lot of videos coming. There's a lot. We want to hear what you guys have to say about the trades that are coming up. So definitely send them to us, particularly on Twitter, because I think that's the easiest place to send screenshots. Anyways, if the Raptors make a move, if they don't, it's going to be exciting next week for fans of the team. Anyways, I'm signing off. Cheers.